right, welcome back in. This is Startups Track 3. This is Week 3 of our project management branch. We've looked at what it is to define the project, and then last week we looked at what it is to do some research and the importance of research. This week we're going to kind of continue on with the research aspect of things, and step 3 of our project management is to gather. So there's a couple things that I want you to gather. I want you to gather requirements. I want you to gather team members. I want you to gather funds, and I want you to gather materials if necessary. Let's go over each one of these individually. First off, gather requirements. Requirements gathering is the process of generating a list of requirements. They could be functional things, system things, technical things, etc. And you get these lists from various customers, users, leaders, maybe stakeholders, vendors, staff members, etc. And this is going to be used as the basis for a formal proposal or for a formal document. Basically, what is required for you to finish this project? There are various ways that you can gather requirements, that you can get an understanding of what the requirements might be. First off, you could brainstorm. You could get as many ideas as possible from a select group of people. Maybe stakeholders or staff members or leaders can get together and brainstorm ideas. You could also hold a focus group. A focus group is a gathering of people who are representative of the users or the customers of a product or ministry or business idea so that you can get feedback. That feedback can be gathered about needs, opportunities, problems to help you identify what the requirements of your project are. Or you can also gather this information to validate and refine some of the requirements that you've already come to. If you're creating a product of some sort, you can also gather requirements by building a prototype. Prototyping is a relatively modern technique for gathering requirements. In this approach, you gather preliminary requirements that you use to build an initial version of a solution or a prototype. You show this to a client, and then they give you feedback, which helps you refine those requirements. This isn't limited only to creating a physical product. I did this all the time with freelancing art, design, and media. I would build a logo, design a flyer, create a video of some sort, and then I'd pass that on to my clients, who would then give me feedback, and then we would refine it from that point on. Lastly, you could put out a survey or a questionnaire. When needing to collect information from many people, too many that you could interview individually, too many that would be part of a focus group, or maybe it's even just based on time constraints, surveys and questionnaires are hugely helpful. There are a great many websites out there that you can put together surveys and questionnaires and send them off via email and let people answer on their own time. The point is that you want to come to an understanding of what is required to complete this project. And so you want to gather your requirements first and foremost. Then the next thing you're going to gather is team members. Hopefully through the research that you've been doing, you've been able to identify what positions or what leaders you need. Once that's established, identify who the candidates are. I can't stress enough the importance of prayer when identifying candidates and team members. Not only should you be in prayer regarding who to approach, but you should also be asking your candidates to pray about joining your team. When you pray about which candidates you should approach, come in with an open mind. The Lord just might ask you to lead people you've never even considered otherwise. He may do this because they have skills that you're not aware of, but He also might do this to stretch you out as a leader. Regardless of why, hearing from the Lord on who to invite to these team meetings is essential. I also never ask people to join a team. I ask people to pray about joining a team. If I ask them to join a team, they may have very logical reasons not to. They may not feel like it. There might be a slew of outside factors that I cannot control. However, if I ask them to pray about becoming part of the team, then ultimately it's God's responsibility to speak to them and their responsibility to listen. So when gathering team members, pray, and pray a lot. Thirdly, you're going to gather funds. Now, personally, I'm not a huge fan of most traditional fund gathering methods. Like, in church at least, it's bake sales and fundraisers and all that kind of stuff. Usually, they're more work than they're worth, and so let's try to think bigger. Let me give you a couple methods of which you might need to use to gather funds. Number one would be crowdfunding. Crowdfunding is incredibly popular these days. In essence, you're soliciting funds from a crowd of people online. Some of the more well-known crowdfunding sites are things like Kickstarter or Indiegogo and Fundable. There are tons of people out there that are just looking to give away money to various startups and organizations. So you can use crowdfunding to access people that you've never even met. And if they buy into your idea or your pitch, they might just help you by giving funds online. Secondly, you could go the bank loan route. That's where you'd present an idea to a bank and apply for a loan to be paid back over time. But obviously, in that case, interest is involved, and banks, well, they have a lot of money because they charge a lot of interest. Thirdly, you could go the venture capital route. That's where you find others who aim to invest early in businesses and ideas, and traditionally they receive equity in the business that they're funding. Though venture capital is usually seen as a high-risk, high-reward avenue for investors, so it might be difficult to gather funds this way if your idea is on the modest side of things. Lastly, you could find a business partner. You may not have the money to get your idea off the ground, but there might be somebody out there who does. In this case, if you choose to do the business partner route, assure that you share the goals and direction with your partner, because you're likely going to be giving up control of this idea or business or ministry to them in exchange for the funding that they provide. So crowdfunding, a bank loan, venture capital, or business partners might be ways that you're able to gather funds, substantial amounts of funds, rather than doing your traditional fundraising methods like bake sales, 50-50 raffles, fundraisers, and those types of things. And then lastly, we're going to gather materials. Now, this is often going to depend on the project itself. This could be anything from wood and drywall for a facilities project to server space and network capabilities for an online store. Hopefully, you've defined your project, you've defined the major pieces and the minor pieces, and then you've done the research to know what's needed. You've gathered requirements, you've gathered team members, and you've gathered funding. And once all of those things are done, you'll have a solid idea of what materials, if any, that you're actually going to need. So then you go out and you get them. Do you need computers or desk space? Do you need paper and pencil? Do you need fill in the blank? Gathering materials is when you go out and get all of the stuff to actually start executing your project. So step 1 was to define the project. Step 2 was research. And step 3 is to gather the requirements, gather the team members, gather the funding, and the materials that you'll need to succeed in this project. So that's your homework assignment for this week. Get gathering. Finish up the research project, end of things, and then gather all of the stuff you need to get this show on the road.